I remember the Guildhall as the centre of a compass. I remember it as a meeting place for soldiers, sailors, guards. I remember seeing Vera Lynn and Dorothy Doodle's little tots. I remember being evacuated to the countryside near Ringwood. I remember being chosen to sit on the steps. I remember the wrestlers, Giant Haystacks and Big Daddy. I remember constellations in the Zodiac room. I remember losing 3 teeth in a punch-up in the square. I remember the day I saw Bill Haley and his comets. I remember the ringing of the Pompey chimes. I remember the drone of bombers flying over. I remember the incendiary bombs slowly floating down. I remember hearing one had fallen through the clock tower. I remember what a bad start we had to the war. I remember clouds of smoke and big bangs of thunder. I remember my father was conscripted in the Navy. He came on a train from Waterloo. Everything around him was on fire. I remember walking down the street and seeing piles of bricks. I remember the gold and silver was secure in a big safe. I remember being down in the shelter for hours. I remember all that was left standing was the Guildhall's outer walls. I remember how we'd climb up and sit on the lions. I remember we'd get bread baskets and bump down the steps. I remember dragging a friend to see the band Hot Chocolate. I remember I pushed her to the front where the lead singer kissed her. I remember the big weddings. It was a place for getting married. I remember the protests against Margaret Thatcher. I remember lying on a stretcher as the death of education. I remember Remembrance Sunday and hearing the last post. I remember please and thank you goes a long way. I remember Grandad crying and not understanding why. I remember the Lord Mayor's tea party. We'd go and have lunch. The Mayor would do the serving. They paid for pensioners to come. I remember standing on the steps with school for Christmas choir. I remember the choirs were wonderful. My mother sang in them. I remember going to craft fairs and my uncle played accordion. I remember getting a certificate for outstanding community care.